Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why so many people work harder than ever, only to stay stuck right where they are? Why does the middle class, people with steady jobs, decent incomes, and a dream of security still find themselves trapped in financial struggles, living paycheck to paycheck? The reason is simple. The middle class was never taught the pathway to wealth. They were taught the pathway to survival. And survival is not the same as success. Today, I want to open your eyes to the ultimate path that can take you from middle class struggle to extraordinary wealth. Wealth begins in the mind before it appears in the bank. And this is the first truth that separates those who rise to extraordinary levels of prosperity from those who remain bound in the same cycle of struggle. The human mind is the greatest asset you will ever possess, greater than money, greater than resources, greater than any opportunity that might come your way, because it is the mind that determines how you interpret, respond to, and ultimately create wealth from the circumstances around you. The middle class has been conditioned to believe that wealth is the result of luck, opportunity, or hard labor, when in reality it is the product of perspective, belief, and intentional thought. You cannot attract or build what you do not first believe you are capable of. That is why wealthy people guard their minds as carefully as they guard their investments. They understand that a poverty mindset produces poverty outcomes, while a wealth mindset produces wealth outcomes. Think about it. Every invention, every business, every fortune that has ever been built began as a thought in someone's mind. It began with a vision, a dream, an idea that the world could be different than it is right now. The problem with most middle class thinking is that it is rooted in survival rather than creation. Survival says, I just need enough to pay my bills. Creation says, I am capable of building something that outlives me. Survival says, I can't afford that. Creation asks, how can I afford that? This is more than semantics. It is the dividing line between scarcity and abundance. If you constantly focus on limitations, your life will mirror limitations. If you focus on possibilities, your life will begin to reflect opportunities. The hook here is simple. Your life will always move in the direction of your most dominant thoughts. Let me ask you, what are you rehearsing in your mind every day? Are you thinking about lack, debt, and stress, or are you envisioning increase, opportunity, and freedom? The middle class has been programmed by the culture to accept ceilings that were never meant to exist. They are told, this is how life works. You go to school, you get a job, you retire with enough to scrape by. But wealthy people refuse to accept ceilings. They live by a different set of assumptions. They assume abundance is available. They assume opportunity is present. They assume they are capable of creating more than they consume. That assumption is not arrogance. It is faith applied to possibility. Wealthy individuals know that money is not first a physical resource. It is a spiritual and intellectual resource. It starts invisible before it becomes visible. That is why two people can have the same income and the same opportunities, but one becomes wealthy while the other remains stuck. The difference is not external, it is internal. The wealthy person programs their mind with vision, discipline, and belief. The other person allows their mind to be programmed by fear, scarcity, and resignation. And here is the powerful truth. Your mind is programmable. Whatever you repeat to yourself with consistency will eventually become the reality you live in. If you continue to say, I can't afford it, you will always live in a life you cannot afford. If you begin to declare, I will find a way, your brain will activate creativity, resourcefulness, and determination. Consider this hook, The wealth you will one day hold in your hand is already present in the ideas you hold in your head. If you cultivate the right mindset, wealth will be drawn to you because you will begin to see opportunities others overlook. Where the middle class sees problems, the wealthy see solutions they can monetize. Where the middle class sees risk, the wealthy see potential reward. Where the middle class sees obstacles, the wealthy see stepping stones. It is the same world, the same environment, but the difference lies in perception. Your thinking has to stretch beyond what is convenient and into what is possible. That means you must feed your mind with ideas that elevate rather than diminish you. Read books that expand your vision. Surround yourself with people who talk about opportunities instead of limitations, and guard your thoughts as carefully as a farmer guards his seeds. Because your thoughts are seeds, and those seeds will either grow into trees of wealth or weeds of struggle, depending on what you are planting. So the ultimate shift for the middle class is not to work harder at the same job, but to reprogram the way they see themselves and the world. Once the mind is transformed, the actions will follow. You will make different decisions about money, about time, about investments, and about opportunities. And as those decisions accumulate, they manifest as wealth in your life. Remember this hook: your income will never exceed your identity. If you see yourself as middle class, you will remain there. But the moment you begin to think like the wealthy, you begin to attract and create wealth itself. Wealth always begins in the mind before it ever shows up in the bank. Stop trading time for dollars. Start trading value for wealth. This one principle, when fully understood, has the power to alter the entire trajectory of your life. Most people in the middle class are conditioned to believe that the only way to earn more is to work more hours. They believe that income is directly tied to time, so their solution to financial struggle is to add overtime, get a second job, or take on side hustles that still consume their hours. But here's the problem. Time is a finite resource. You only have 24 hours in a day, and once they are gone forever. If your financial strategy depends on time, you will eventually reach a ceiling you cannot break through. The wealthy understand this limitation, and instead of trading time for money, they trade value for wealth. The difference may sound subtle, but it is life-changing. When you are paid for your time, your income is limited by the hours you can physically work. When you are paid for value, your income becomes unlimited because value can be multiplied, scaled, and delivered in ways that do not depend on your presence. Think about it. An author writes a book once, but it can sell millions of copies. A musician records a song once, but it can stream endlessly. A business owner creates a system, and that system serves customers day and night, long after they've stopped working. That is trading value for wealth. It is creating something that multiplies beyond your individual effort. Here's the hook. The middle class works in their income. The wealthy work on their income. Middle class people show up to a job and trade hours for paychecks. Wealthy people build asset systems and intellectual property that work for them whether they are awake or asleep. Ask yourself, do you own your income, or does your income own you? If you stop working today, does your money stop coming in? If the answer is yes, you are still trading time for dollars. But if you build something that continues to pay you even when you rest, you have shifted into trading value for wealth. This is why wealthy individuals focus on creating leverage. They ask, how can I take this value I provide and scale it to more people, more places, and more markets? The middle class often thinks in terms of personal labor. What can I do myself? The wealthy think in terms of impact. How many people can this reach without me being there? The shift is not about working harder. It is about working smarter and multiplying what you already do. One of the biggest traps of middle class thinking is believing that stability comes from a paycheck. The truth is, stability comes from cash flow that is not dependent on your labor. When you trade time for dollars, you are never truly secure. A layoff, an illness, or an economic downturn can wipe away your income in a moment. But when you build assets that produce income regardless of your time, you create true financial security. That might mean starting a business, investing in real estate, developing digital products, or creating intellectual property that pays you royalties. The form doesn't matter as much as the principle. Stop tying your wealth to the clock. Now here's another hook. Money is a poor master, but a powerful servant. If you spend your life working for money, you will always feel enslaved by it. But if you learn how to make money work for you, it becomes your servant, multiplying your value and expanding your freedom. The middle class believes freedom comes from working harder. The wealthy know freedom comes from creating value that outlasts your effort. Think about it this way. If you double the number of hours you work, you might double your income for a short time, but you will also double your exhaustion. You will sacrifice your health, your family, and your peace. That is not wealth, that is bondage. But if you double the value you provide to the marketplace in a way that can be scaled, your income can multiply while your time investment stays the same, or even decreases. That is the difference between working for money and making money work for you. So the ultimate question is this: what value do you have inside of you that the world needs? Every person has gifts, skills, knowledge, and creativity that can be transformed into value. The tragedy is that most people bury those gifts inside a job description that pays them just enough to survive. But when you unlock your gifts and turn them into solutions for others, you create value that the market will reward abundantly. That value can be packaged, multiplied, and delivered without you being there every hour. And that is the path to wealth. Remember, this hook wealth is not built by how many hours you work. It is built by how much value you create. As long as your income depends on the clock, you are capped. But the moment you shift your focus to creating value that multiplies, your potential becomes limitless. The middle class trades time for dollars. The wealthy trade value for wealth. The choice is yours. Money is a seed. Plant it. Don't eat it. This is one of the greatest truths about wealth. Yet it is the one that most people in the middle class ignore, often without even realizing it. When money comes into their hands, their first thought is how to spend it on bills, on entertainment, on consumer goods, on something that makes them feel comfortable for the moment. But when money is treated only as a tool for consumption, it never has the chance to multiply. Seeds don't grow in your stomach, they grow in the soil. And the same way, money doesn't grow when you consume it. It grows when you plant it into assets, investments, and opportunities that create harvests far greater than the seed itself. Consider this: every great tree began as a single seed. That tiny seed, small and almost insignificant, carried within it the potential to produce shade, fruit, and even forests. Money works the same way. A dollar may seem small, but when planted in the right soil of investments or value creation, it has the power to multiply itself over and over again. The middle class spends their seeds and wonders why their financial field is barren. The wealthy plant their seeds and reap harvests for generations. The hook is clear: the money you consume disappears. The money you plant multiplies. This shift requires a new way of thinking about money. Too many people say, I don't make enough to save or invest. But the truth is, they don't invest because they don't value the principle of planting. Wealthy people didn't wait until they had millions to invest. They began by planning the little they had. They understood that consistency and patience turn small seeds into abundant harvests. The middle class often looks for quick returns, instant gratification, and immediate results. But seeds don't grow overnight. They require time, care, and nurturing. Planting money into investments, skills, or businesses requires patience. But that patience produces exponential returns. Here's another hook. The harvest you eat tomorrow depends on the seeds you plant today. If you consume everything you earn, you are eating your future before it arrives. Every time you spend impulsively, you are trading tomorrow's abundance for today's comfort. The wealthy understand that sacrifice is not loss, it is investment. They are willing to delay gratification, to say no to short-term pleasures, so they can enjoy long-term prosperity. The middle class often does the opposite. They say yes to comfort today and pay the price with struggle tomorrow. Planting your money is not just about financial investments. It is also about planting into knowledge, skills, and relationships. When you invest in learning, you increase your ability to create value in the marketplace. When you invest in relationships, you expand your opportunities. When you invest in assets like real estate, businesses, or intellectual property, you create income streams that outlast your labor. Every dollar can either be consumed or cultivated, and the choice you make determines whether your financial life is a barren field or a fruitful harvest. Imagine a farmer who eats all his seeds in one season. He may feel satisfied for the moment, but when planting season comes, he has nothing left. He is forced into lack, begging or borrowing, because he consumed what was meant to create his future. That is exactly what many in the middle class do with their money. They consume it as fast as they earn it, leaving nothing to plant, and then wonder why wealth never grows in their lives. Wealthy people think differently. They treat every dollar as a servant, giving it a job to do, whether to grow, to multiply, or to bring back more dollars. Here's the powerful truth. Your money can work harder than you ever could, but only if you send it to work. If you spend it all, you dismiss your money from duty. If you plan it wisely, it works 24 hours a day, never asking for rest, never demanding overtime, never complaining. That is how wealth is built, not by working harder yourself, but by making your money work harder than you. So let me ask you, are you eating your seeds or planting them? Every purchase, every financial decision is a choice between consumption and cultivation. If you want to move from middle class to wealth, you must stop treating money as a paycheck to be spent and start treating it as a seed to be sown. Because one seed planted can create a harvest that feeds you for a season, and a harvest can create more seeds to plant again. The cycle of wealth is not built on consumption, it is built on planning. And the sooner you learn to plant your money instead of eating it, the sooner you step into a life where abundance multiplies instead of scarcity repeats. Leverage is the secret weapon of the wealthy, and until you understand it, you will always remain limited by your own effort. Most people in the middle class believe that the only way to get ahead is to work harder, stay later, or take on more responsibility. But no matter how hard you work, you are still confined to the 24 hours in a day and the strength of your own two hands. Wealthy individuals understand something radically different. Success is not about how much you can personally do, but about how much you can cause to be done. Leverage is the power to multiply your results without multiplying your effort, to scale your income beyond the limits of your own time and energy. Think about it this way. One person can push a heavy object with limited force, but if they use a lever, that same person can move something far larger than themselves. That is exactly how leverage works in business and wealth creation. Instead of relying solely on their own labor, wealthy people leverage systems, money people, and technology to expand their reach and multiply their impact. This is why they can build empires while others struggle to get through the week. The hook is clear hard work may build a living, but leverage builds a fortune. Let's look at money. When the middle class earns money, they tend to spend it or save it. When the wealthy earn money, they put it to work. They understand that every dollar can be leveraged to create more dollars through investments, businesses, or income producing assets. They don't just store money, they multiply it. They make their dollars employees, working around the clock to bring in more. While the middle class says, I can't afford to risk it, the wealthy say, I can't afford not to put it to work. The hook here is simple money sitting still is wasted potential, but money in motion becomes leverage. Now consider people. The middle class often says, if I want it done right, I have to do it myself. That mindset is a trap because it limits success to what one person can do. Wealthy individuals, on the other hand, understand the power of teams. They hire, delegate, and empower others to carry out work that multiplies their vision. They realize that 10 people working an hour can accomplish what it would take one person 10 hours to do. They don't see delegation as a weakness. They see it as leverage. By empowering others, they free themselves to focus on higher value activities that create exponential growth. Technology is another form of leverage the wealthy embrace. Instead of resisting change, they adopt tools that allow them to reach more people with less effort. An online store can sell products globally while the owner sleeps. A single video can inspire millions without the speaker being in the room. A digital system can automate processes that used to take hours. The middle class often sees technology as something to consume. The wealthy see it as something to capitalize on. They understand that the right system is like having an army of invisible workers multiplying their efficiency. Here's another powerful hook. Leverage turns effort into multiplication instead of addition. The middle class adds effort, while the wealthy multiply results. This is why two people can work equally hard, but one stays stuck while the other creates exponential wealth. It's not about effort. It's about using effort strategically. The difference between labor and leverage is the difference between running on a treadmill and flying in an airplane. Both require energy, but one keeps you in place while the other takes you to new heights. Leverage also extends to knowledge and networks. Wealthy people leverage mentors, coaches, and relationships to shorten their learning curve and access opportunities. Instead of figuring everything out on their own, they learn from those who have already walked the path. They understand that proximity to the right people can save years of trial and error. The middle class often isolates themselves, believing success is a solo journey. But the wealthy know that leverage comes from connection. When you leverage relationships, doors open that you could never have forced open by yourself. So let me ask you, are you relying solely on your own effort? Or are you harnessing leverage to expand your results? Every day you spend doing tasks someone else could do for less is a day you're robbing yourself of higher value activities. Every dollar you leave idle is a seed you refuse to plant. Every tool you ignore is a lever you've chosen not to pull. The wealthy are not working harder than you. They're simply using leverage in ways that multiply their time, money, and influence. The truth is, leverage is not optional if you want to build lasting wealth. Without it, you will always be limited by yourself. With it, you can create results that outlive you. And here's the final hook: effort creates survival, but leverage creates legacy. The middle class settles for what they can do alone. The wealthy build what they could never do alone. The question is, which path will you choose? Comfort is the enemy of wealth. Courage is the path. This is one of the most difficult truths for many people to accept because comfort feels safe, familiar, and secure. The middle class has been trained to pursue comfort their entire lives. Find a stable job, get a steady paycheck, buy a home you can afford, and don't take unnecessary risks. On the surface, that sounds responsible, but beneath it lies a hidden trap. Comfort creates complacency, and complacency keeps you stuck in mediocrity. Comfort never challenges you, never stretches you, never forces you to grow. Courage, on the other hand, demands that you step outside what feels safe and take bold actions toward the life you desire. Without courage, wealth will always remain out of reach. Think about it. Every major breakthrough in history, every innovation, every fortune that was ever built came from someone choosing courage over comfort. Comfort whispers, stay where you are. Don't rock the boat. Don't risk failure. Courage says, step out, take the chance, and trust that growth only happens in unfamiliar territory. The hook is simple. Comfort will protect you from failure, but it will also protect you from success. If you are unwilling to be uncomfortable, you are also unwilling to be wealthy. The middle class often lives in a cycle of fear of losing what they already have, fear of being judged, fear of making mistakes. This fear leads them to play small, to avoid risks, and to settle for good enough. But the wealthy understand that risk is not something to fear, it is something to manage. They know that playing it safe is often the riskiest decision of all because safety keeps you trapped in limitation. A job may feel safe, but is it really safe if your income can disappear with a single layoff? A savings account may feel safe, but is it safe if inflation is eroding its value every day? What feels safe is often the very thing keeping you stuck. Here's another hook: growth and comfort cannot exist in the same space. If you are growing, you will not feel comfortable. And if you are comfortable, you are not growing. The wealthy embrace discomfort as a sign they are moving in the right direction. They are willing to face uncertainty, to make decisions without guarantees, and to take actions that stretch their capacity. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in spite of fear. That willingness is what creates opportunities others never experience. Consider how courage works in the area of investments. The middle class often says, what if I lose money? The wealthy ask, what if this multiplies my money? The difference is not the absence of risk, but the presence of courage. The middle class waits for certainty, but certainty never comes. The wealthy move forward with wisdom and faith, knowing that no return is possible without first taking a step of courage. The hook here is powerful. The reward you want is always on the other side of the fear you're avoiding. Courage also means having the boldness to think differently from the crowd. Most people are afraid of standing out, so they conform to the same patterns, the same routines, and the same financial traps everyone else is stuck in. But wealth requires you to separate yourself from the herd, to think in ways others won't, and to pursue opportunities others dismiss. That kind of boldness requires courage because it often means criticism, misunderstanding, or even temporary isolation. Yet it is that very separation that creates uncommon results. Courage is also necessary when it comes to personal growth. It takes courage to admit what you don't know, to invest in learning, to seek mentorship, and to challenge your own limiting beliefs. The middle class often resists growth because growth is uncomfortable. It exposes weaknesses and forces change. But the wealthy lean into growth because they know discomfort is the price of transformation. The courage to face yourself, to break old habits, and to develop new skills is the foundation for every external success. So the real question becomes, are you living for comfort or are you living with courage? Every decision you make moves you toward one or the other. Every time you choose the easy path, the safe option, the familiar routine, you are choosing comfort and with it limitation. Every time you step into the unknown, stretch yourself, and take a bold action, you are choosing courage and with it possibility. Comfort keeps you where you are. Courage takes you where you've never been. And here's the final hook. The life you dream about will never show up in your comfort zone. It exists only in the space that requires courage. The middle class builds their lives around comfort and wonder why they remain stuck. The wealthy build their lives around courage and discover freedom, abundance, and impact. Comfort is easy, but it costs you everything you could have been. Courage is hard, but it rewards you with everything you were meant to be.